What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another top 10 commander video. This time I would like to go over my picks for the 10 best upgrades for the Draconic Rage preconstructed commander deck. This is the commander deck with Vrondis Rage of Ancients, and unlike the two previous ones for the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Precon set, this does come with two pretty decent backup commander options in Clouth Unrivaled Ancient and Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. However, to remain consistent, I'm going to focus primarily on the primary commander here in Vrondis. But before I move on to the top 10, first I would like to remind you that most of you who are watching right now are not actually subscribed to the channel. So I would really appreciate it if you did me the favor of hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I really do appreciate it. You guys are awesome. So let's start it off here with number 10, Utvara Hellkite. What is absolutely necessary for this deck is to focus on getting even more dragon tokens. You are going to be able to deal a lot of damage off of triggers, but you want to maintain a creature presence because you lose those tokens when they deal damage. It's a little bit harder to do that, but with Utvara Hellkite, it makes it so that whenever you attack with one of those dragons, you're going to get a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying. The tokens that you get off of Vrondis do not have flying, so this is a huge advantage. Getting numbers and dragons I think is a huge help, and this is going to be more of a dragon tribal focused deck. A little bit more pricey, above a $10 card, so that's really the only knock against it, but it is most certainly an upgrade that you want to add. Number 9 here is Ripjaw Raptor. Something that green is exceptional at is drawing cards. With something like Ripjaw Raptor, all you have to do is deal damage to it. It also has an enrage trigger, kind of like our commander, so when you deal damage to it, just ping it for 1 damage, you get to draw a card. Since you're likely building around the enrage trigger of something like Vrondis, this should be a no-brainer. It should be pretty easy to accomplish. And number 8 is Elemental Bond, another way in green to draw a bunch of cards. Not really much of a build around. You don't have to focus on dealing damage to get that enrage trigger. You just benefit off of Vrondis' trigger whenever you get those tokens. Since this doesn't specify non-token creature, when those tokens enter they have power 3 or greater, you will draw a card. So for only 3 mana, this is an enchantment that is super affordable that I think is going to result in you drawing several cards, even more so than Ripjaw Raptor. And it'll keep your hand full, and when you have a full hand in this game, you're allowed to do a lot more. So card draw is something you definitely want to look for when it comes to upgrading any commander precon, and that's usually the go-to. It's card draw, mana ramp, how can I make this stack quicker, how can I make it so I can cast at least 2 spells a turn. Number 7 is Goblin Bombardment. If you want to go for combo potential, even if you're not necessarily looking for that, even if you're just looking for an easy way of dealing 1 damage to Vrondis to get that trigger, Goblin Bombardment I think is going to be important. And also for combos, there are some combos in here that once you get to a Goblin Bombardment, it just makes it so much easier to win the game. Also good because I think a deck like this does need sack outlets, and even if you're not looking to win through a combo, just having a reliable sack outlet like this that will also help you deal damage, get you closer to that end goal of actually burning out your opponents, and you can't really go wrong here for the 2 mana that you're spending into it. Usually the best sack outlets in the game are the ones that don't cost you any more mana to sacrifice. And then number 6 we have Rhythm of the Wild. Now we're just talking about convenience, now we're just talking about making the deck run smoothly. All around, when you give yourself protection, when you make it so that your spells can't be countered, even if it's just creatures, you're going to have a much easier time with your strategy, so your creatures can't be countered and your non-token creatures have Riot. This is going to be useful because you're going to play primarily a creature-focused deck here around dragons. If you give those dragons Riot, it's going to make it easier getting the attack trigger off of something like an Utvara Hellkite. But it should be no surprise, this is one of the most played red and green cards out there. And then number 5, now we're talking about the combos here, Inara Wolvid Familiar. As long as it's your turn, commanders you control have Indestructible. This is useful because Vrondis can still be dealt damage while he's indestructible. However, the damage won't ever be enough to kill him. To me, the best precon upgrades that you can go for are the precon upgrades that really help to take advantage of what your commander is good at specifically. We could talk about just convenience cards, we could talk about ramp, we could talk about card draw, but you want to go for the cards that are going to make it easier for your commander to really stand out. And this is one of the ones that helps to do that. So you have an enrage trigger. I believe this is the only commander option with one. Really take advantage of that by preventing it from being destroyed. And then number 4 here is a similar idea, Rite of Passage, but instead of making Vrondis indestructible, each time it would be dealt damage, it gets a +1/+1 counter. This also happens to work whenever any creature you control is dealt damage. So if you want to use another spell we're going to talk about here to deal a damage to each creature, this is effectively going to make it so that a lot of spells are one-sided. Most of, if not all of your board is going to survive being pinged over time. If your creatures keep surviving that damage, they're going to collect a lot more power and toughness. So even if you don't have a combo, even if you don't have a way to take advantage of Rondis right then and there, it's still going to help you win the game. The amount of damage you're going to be able to deal after playing something like this is insane. And then number 3, we have Pyrohemia. This is a card I'm really wanting to talk about here in connection with Rite of Passage, because that's 1 damage to each creature and each player. If you're dealing that 1 damage to each of your creatures, they're going to get a +1/+1 counter, so you can effectively use this to destroy everything else, everything your opponents control, even burn them out a bit. Each time you deal a damage to Rondis, you're going to get another dragon, and hopefully you're going to have a dragon army. But Pyrohemia is really a no-brainer. This was a staple in a lot of those dinosaur decks, because a lot of the dinosaurs, even though something like a Shath didn't have Enrage, you had a ton of other dinosaurs in that deck that did, and this was one of the best ways of easily and repeatedly triggering their Enrage abilities. In worst case scenario, you always want to have a backup plan with a lot of the cards that you play. It can still be used as removal, so just dump a bunch of red mana into it and wipe the board. You do have to get rid of it once there are no creatures on the battlefield, but hey, at least it served a purpose. And then number 2, we have Terror of the Peaks. A little bit pricey, but you could always just wait for it to go down once it's no longer a big part of standard. Spells your opponents cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. This is better than something like a Warstorm Surge because the way that Rondis is worded, when the creature tokens that he creates deal damage, you have to sacrifice them. With Terror of the Peaks, it is actually Terror of the Peaks that is dealing that damage. So you still get to benefit off of those creatures entering the battlefield. You get to deal that 5 damage with Terror of the Peaks, not the actual tokens themselves. So it is a very good synergy, a much improved Warstorm Surge, and in addition to that, it is a dragon itself. So it synergizes perfectly with the deck and exactly what you want to do with Rondis. And the last card here, number 1, Dragon Tempest. This card is absolutely ridiculous, and I think we found the perfect dragon deck to really take advantage of it. I don't think it was ever bad in previous dragon tribal decks, but I don't think it's going to be quite as abusable as it is right now, where you have the ability, the potential to create a ton of dragon tokens. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gains haste until end of turn. That's not really the big deal here. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. So for only a 2 mana enchantment, you have something that is going to benefit off of the total number of dragons you control. If you have any way of keeping those dragons out there, if you have any way of growing your total number of dragons, all it really takes is a soft combo where you can create maybe a few dragons, and that's a ton of damage that you can deal directly to players. What I think puts it a little bit ahead of Terror of the Peaks is that it's dirt cheap. It's not going to be viewed as much of a threat, even though it should be, and it does help to synergize with the rest of your dragon deck, because a lot of your other dragons are going to have flying, so it's going to make it easier for you to benefit off of something like an Utvara Hellkite. Everything about Rondis just spells out Dragon Tribal, and Dragon Tempest right now just seems to be the best Dragon Tribal card that you can play. But anyway, let me know what you think about these 10 Precon upgrades for the Draconic Rage preconstructed deck from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.